Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the TechBluePrint Podcast. My name is Jack Tyrrell, and in this series, I'll be chatting to the people behind the tech, engineers, founders, and builders, essentially people who are shaping the future of how we work and scale in the world of software and AI in Ireland. To kick things off, I'm joined today by Sean Blanchfield, someone who's no stranger to building tech companies. His latest venture, Jentic, is actually tackling one of the biggest questions in AI right now, which is how do we make AI agents work together in a way that seems seamless and scalable. He has called Jentic the integration layer for AI agents. So look, if that sounds interesting or slightly mysterious, don't worry, we're going to unpack all of it. Look, we're going to dive into how the platform works, the tech stack behind it, the challenges of building AI infrastructure, and how Sean sees this shaping the future of applied AI, not just in Ireland, but globally. Look, this is a fascinating one to kick things off. So please listen on to hear some more. Hey, Sean, thanks very much for joining me today.
Hey, Jack. Good to be here.
Good man. So look, just obviously keen to get stuck into question one. So let's start with your journey. How did you first get into the world of tech and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, I have to go back a bit, but I did my first company as an undergrad, I think in 2001, and that's where it started. So,
Wow.
Yeah, that company was is Forest, which is still going very strong. You know, it's a big company now, PE backed, but Forest with a PH. So it was me and two other guys as undergrads who I met in student politics, basically. Then, that set me on this path. I've somehow managed to never have a real job.
Awesome. What would you say was the, I suppose, like moment or insight that sparked the idea for Jentic, what you're doing now, and I suppose like how has it evolved into what it is today?
Yeah, well, we're still quite early on our journey, but I suppose in AI terms, we're old. And so my background, actually, I'll go back to the start. So I did Forest, and then I dropped out of a PhD in the early 2000s in computer science to do a company called Demonware with Dylan Collins, one of the co-founders of Forest, right? And that was a networking stack for video games, basically, right? So it was like 2000, we were looking around, everyone was playing video games in the labs in college, playing Quake and Soldier of Fortune and stuff, but it wasn't on consoles yet. We thought this stuff's going to go on consoles. People are going to want to do multiplayer, but that involves all kinds of networking stuff that video game studios don't want to do. They want to do graphics. We can do the networking. Let's jump in there. And we built that. So basically the networking stack, networking infrastructure, and everything that makes the, say, multiplayer in Call of Duty go. And Call of Duty ended up the biggest game that we worked on. And the company was bought by Activision for that. So in a way, Jentic is a bit of a parallel to that. Like there's post-Demonware, we bought by Activision. There's a bunch of other startups in my career in between video games and this. But it's like going back to the roots a little bit, which is... for AI to be useful, it's got to connect to things. This is what we call agents, right? Instead of the chatbot telling you what to do, it can go and do it itself. To connect to things, this is all networking, it's all API, it's hooking all that stuff up. The lesson, I think, as software engineers, we learn again and again through each paradigm shift is that the complexity ends up in the network and that big mess of everything connecting to everything else. That's often the hard part, not the actual instances of the actual software programs, right? They're complicated enough, but the distributed system of all of this stuff connecting to itself is much more complicated. So Jentic is all about that. It's not about the AI itself. It's about helping the AI connect to everything else in the world and ultimately to other AI systems. It's the connection layer for AI, or as I sometimes describe it to my mom, it's like if the robots are coming for our jobs, this is the telephone network, the telephone operator, and the telephone phone book for that future.
100%. Like I know you've described it pretty well there, but for people that maybe don't know too much about it, what would you say sort of makes it sort of technically unique, or how would you describe the platform for those that don't really know who or what it is?
If it's a technical person, I say it's an integration layer for AI, and they get it. If it's a non-technical person, I might reach for that telephone network thing. Right?
Okay.
But basically, if you're building an AI agent, this means you take some AI like OpenAI or Anthropic or one of the big AI companies. You take that LLM and you wrap it in a computer program that basically prompts it to say, you're going to get a task, try to make a plan, and then try and figure out a way to perform that plan. And you just make the LLM kind of loop on that. And all you need to do then is start hooking up some connections to other systems. And you have what we call an agent. So for example, like in a very simple case, maybe you have an LLM set up in one of these programs that's connected to Slack and your company's time off booking system. And this means that now the employees can go on Slack and basically say, hey, HR bot, I want to get holidays next Friday. I want to take next Friday afternoon off. Is that cool? And the bot can pick it up and say, I got to make a plan for doing this. What do I have? Okay, I have access to the database where I can check who else is off. And I have access to this thing that says who's the person's line manager that I need to get permission for. I'm going to make this little plan. And it just makes a little plan, which is a bullet list. It takes the first item and says to itself, how am I going to do this first item? Well, I guess I have to do a lookup on this database. Do I have a thing for that? Oh, I have this tool. I'm going to make this call against this thing and check who else is off or what the time off policy is. And it just works through the plan.
Right now.
And the code is actually remarkably simple. Like if you look at it as code, and there's platforms where you can do this with a point and click interface now. You can build these. There's multiple agent builder platforms where you don't need to be a coder to build these. Obviously, the LLM is complex. That's the transformative technology here. And then the other piece that's complex is hooking it up to all of those systems. Just that connection glue layer, and that's where we come in. We facilitate all those connections in a nice, secure, scalable way.
Slightly scary, but very, very interesting. What would you say is like some of the biggest technical challenges then in terms of building Jentic so far, and sort of how do you go about approaching, solving that?
It's a huge challenge. So we're a startup as well. Right? We're 9 months old. We have fairly significant funding. I feel in many ways we're like the all-island Irish AI team in terms of the people who are joining the company and the speed we're growing at and the number of investors we have in the capital. But we're just 9 months old. And there's a big problem to be solved here. And we're trying to build in the future where AI works, where agents are there, where the security concerns are addressed. Our goal, more or less, is to take every machine interface in the world, which means all of the APIs, all the SaaS products, all the databases, potentially all the email servers, everything that's on a computer that you can use or connect to, and create machine readable knowledge, like documentation for all of those systems, and then to provision access to that to AI on demand so that AI can connect with anything. So we're basically trying to map the entire internet of services of all types into a format that's compatible for AI. And then hook it all up. That's pretty challenging. Thankfully, we have AI to help us do this. So it's both for AI, but we're trying to build an AI native company. No one really knows what an AI native company is yet. We're trying to figure it out. All we know, like I think other companies of our generation, is we have to be an AI native company or we will get killed by an AI native company. And I think this means that our engineering is done primarily with AI. Our engineers don't code. They manage AI that codes. And we're trying to replicate that kind of lesson across the org structure as we scale. So it's AI drives marketing. AI, we need to put AI in a position where it can initially inform and ultimately perform strategic decision making, and ultimately build a company that's really itself an AI system that's managed by a crew of humans, but the work is done by the AI, not by the people. So yeah, it's a big challenge we're facing, and we're looking to do, but we have the superpower that now has arrived on planet Earth in the last couple of years, which is AI, to do it with. So it's very exciting.
100%. Exciting is exactly the word I would use as well. Given your position then, so if I'm right saying you're on Ireland's AI Advisory Council,
correct, yeah.
How do you see the role of infrastructure like Jentic then shaping the future of applied AI in Ireland then?
Well, it is infrastructure. I think whether it's Jentic or a Jentic competitor, if you want to build agents at scale and hook them up, you need something in our category to manage all those hookups to all those other
Of
systems
course.
in a way that's just basically manageable and isn't a total mess, isn't a big ball of spaghetti, and is also secure. So it's core infrastructure for that. And in the future, as we see it, basically agents replace software, more or less, and an agent being an AI agent. Primarily,
Yeah.
AI replaces software. And it does it in this way, where there used to be software, lots and lots of code, carefully created by very expensively paid engineers. This goes away and gets replaced by an AI that has knowledge of APIs and access to workflows, like basically procedural knowledge of standard operating procedures for how to get stuff done. And that basically makes all the software go away. It's huge. And the core things driving that is an LLM. We all know about LLMs, and a tooling layer like us.
Fantastic.
So yeah, there's another kind of infrastructure you might ask about from the, say, AI Advisory Council perspective. As a small country, a small island that wants to participate in the future, like AI is very challenging. It's going to be very economically challenging as a transition. There hasn't been a technology like this before. It's not reasonable to expect humans to upskill with this transition. Just like with computers, you'd say that's fine. Like maybe more manual labor gets replaced by knowledge work. People upskill, and that's fine. It's disruptive, but it's fine. With AI, it's getting smarter really fast, and in many ways, it's reached Nobel laureate level in narrow fields. It's performing scientific research. It's taking off, right? If it's a question of intelligence and knowledge, AI is going to beat us, and in some areas, it already has. So, what do you do with your economy when the knowledge work, that the highest value jobs are being replaced by AI? There's still humans, but it's not clear how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Like, do you need if every lawyer is 10 times as productive as they used to be, do you need 10 times more law?
Yeah.
Are you going to keep them busy with that productivity boost, or do you need fewer of them? And how does that lesson translate across an economy? It's challenging. And how does wealth distribution work? Right? It's certainly AI is like very powerful. The owners of AI are going to like grow their capital faster than everyone else. Labor, the need for labor will be disrupted. Jobs to some extent, in some industries at least, but we don't know to what extent, will be replaced by AI. The wealth distribution goes away. It gets replaced to some extent with API fees getting paid out to LLMs. So possibly leaves the economy. How do you ensure that your economy still has a foothold in that future supply chain? You need to be focusing on innovation, building companies that are like powering the infrastructure of it at a software layer, maybe like us. You need to figure out your energy policy. You need to be trying to host inference centers where the software, where the AI actually runs. This actually boils down to electricity. What's your green energy strategy? Do you have the actual infrastructure to move, say, wind energy around the island, which in Ireland we're failing at? Nuclear, energy storage, like all these things become critical. Like if you like France is in an excellent position with its nuclear power, right? And that translates into its ability to participate in the AI revolution. If we fail at these core infrastructural things, there's a chance that an island like Ireland, but also really most of the economies in the world, should be thinking about this to some extent. If you're not participating, you're not in the future supply chain. Where's your national revenue going to come from? Where's your tax base? Where's your employment? How are you going to fund universal basic in the future? It's big questions.
100%. I was already quite scared at the start, but you're scaring me even more now as this conversation goes on. Okay. In terms of looking ahead, like what's next for the platform? What sort of technical milestones are you excited about? Give us a run through of that.
Yeah, well, we've already launched an open source project containing 1,500 API specifications and 50,000 API operations and thousands of workflows. So we're doing all that in open source. That's one thing we got done earlier in the year. That's been grown by AI as well. So AI is generating all this information, and then we're open sourcing.
Yeah.
So that's just available for anyone. We've launched a service where any AI agent can hook up to Jentic and basically work with that information smoothly. And that's out. We're currently working on authentication and permissions. So that's the next phase. So making sure that when a password or an authentication key is required in order to access some API or service, that we have a sensible way to put that in there. And then the permissions part of it is going to run deep. Right?
Okay.
As this all scales up and there's more and more agents, if you want to be responsible, you need to have some kind of like fine-grained governance ability over what an agent is allowed to do. Especially because they're very easy to trick into doing things that you didn't intend for them to do when you designed them. So this is about permissions and having a central platform where an organization, a user, a person maybe, but also an organization can look at all the agents that are operating on their behalf and like at a very fine-grained way say, these are the systems this is allowed to access. This is the kind of data from those systems these agents are allowed to access. Don't even tell it about the other stuff, and certainly don't let it access anything it's not allowed to. And that's how this scales up responsibly.
Awesome.
So that's the current engineering effort, and we'll have something at the door in that regard very soon. And I think actually there's years of work in making that better and better and better. It's a very complex problem to try to
of course,
permissions and authorization and data access policies. It gets really complicated.
No, of course. Okay, look, final question for you, probably more of just for like a bonus type question anyway, for maybe a bit more sort of fun. What is a piece of tech, past or present, that has either inspired you, or maybe it's something that you personally have built?
Oh, there's lots of moments of like, oh crap, I should have done that. Or I was doing it and I thought it wasn't going to work, so I abandoned it, and then someone else made $1 billion out of it. Yeah, I think I don't really I'm not really wired for regret in a way, because I've just done lots of adventures in business and I don't really look back. But if you
have time to.
The DreamWare story was a good one. I don't regret that. We caught the wave with multiplayer gaming, and we became the leading company doing that stuff in our time, working on the biggest online game in the world. So that's good. Stuff I missed. Well, a few jump to mind. AI is one, right? So when I was a grad student or a PhD student, I was looking at AI as well, and I thought, it's not there yet. It's fun, but you can't really do real stuff with that. I'm going to focus on distributed systems and peer-to-peer stuff and networking, which is what I did, which is kind of close to agents, actually. But looking back, it turns out that, eventually AI was going to become quite powerful and quite useful. And I'm happy I've found myself on the AI boat through a circuitous route in the end. But if I had a time machine, I think it would be great to go back to 2001 or 2002 and say, go into AI. It'll take 20 years, but it's the most important thing humanity has done so far.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Look, that was all the questions I had for you. So I suppose just want to end by saying, look, thanks very much for the time. Looking forward to seeing all the stuff that you're talking about coming to fruition. But yeah, thanks very much for joining me today.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jack. It was a pleasure.